Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Shoes Off Inside with me, Mei Lee, and Kelly Hu. And Tamlyn Tamita cannot be with us today. Sadness. She's actually tending to her mom and doing some other stuff. She's a busy lady, but so it's just the two of us for now. But she will be joining us in the interview portion of this episode because we recorded that a couple weeks ago, actually, just to be totally transparent. So, if that makes sense to everyone. But anyway, hey, Kelly, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you today?
Good, good. I think we missed each other recently in Washington, D.C. You were there one day.
I was doing a panel
Yeah.
for API Heritage Month with stars, talking about their initiative to help women of color, women in the AAPI community,
Right.
with visibility and whatnot on stars on their network.
Right,
And what
right.
were you doing?
Well, that's why it's so funny. I went to that same conference that you were on the panel for, but I went on day 2. You were
Oh, and I
speaking
was
on day
gone.
1. You had already left. I went on day 2 just just to attend, not to participate in a panel or anything. And then I went to the gala that APAX was putting on. So I was in.
all the fun stuff.
I know. I was just like, oh man, she can't stay for the gala. Oh, that's too bad. But anyway, but it was great because APAX is basically, it's an organization that really tries to elevate people, APIs in Congress, in policy roles, in public service. And they've been around for 30 plus years doing this work. So it's great to see that they're trying to work within the political arena to try to elevate the API representation and voices. So anyway,
So much starts there.
so much of it starts there.
And initiatives.
And we still are really lacking when it comes to API representation in politics, right? So we're making some headway, but we definitely have a long way to go. But yeah, so I missed you there. So it's good to see you on here. And today's episode, we are actually going to be talking about relationships and how dating and relationships and the whole idea of marriage. It's all different, right? To each their own. Yes. But for me, and Kelly knows this, but this is the big announcement. I just recently got engaged. And I know. So now we're laughing because when I still tell people that I'm engaged, I start laughing. And I don't know why, but I think I know why. Okay, let's talk about why. It's because this is my first official engagement at the age of 57. That is, I waited a long time. I took my time.
Can I just ask you, why now? Why do you think it was important for you to get engaged now and not so many years before?
Good question, Kelly Hu.
Journalist.
I know. Here's the thing. For me, because I've come close twice before, once in my 20s and once when I was just about to turn 40. And so we'll start with that one. When I was just about to turn 40, I think I was feeling desperate, and because I think women particularly feel like the time is running out. The biological clock is ticking. Oh my God, if it doesn't happen now, if I don't get married now, I'm going to die an old maid, or some,
Wait, you kids?
Well, at that point, even
Because you said biological.
yes, even when I was just about to turn 40, I thought this may be my last chance, right? If I want to have children. So I think I had felt that pressure as well, right? And this is, I'm sure, something that a lot of women can relate to, is that we as women, unfortunately, have this thing called the biological clock. So even if you are thinking, maybe I don't want kids, you still think about but if I do, I have a limited period of time. So we have this feeling of being under pressure of like, okay, I better like get married. I better get on with things, even if it might not be right. And I got to tell you, Kelly, this guy was not right. And the fact that I almost went through with it is a testament to sort of the negative side of how we sometimes do things that we know aren't right, and we'll try to squeeze a square peg into a round hole.
But that's the danger, right, of this biological time, the time clock that just is ticking away.
Yeah.
And this is why I always give advice to young women, married, single, whatever. Freeze your eggs. If you don't know that you are in the perfect relationship and this is the person that you want to have kids with, freeze your egg. You can do that. You don't have to freeze embryos. You know, you can freeze embryos if you prefer, because that actually I think is better, right?
It's a higher
the membrane's
rate.
Stronger.
Yeah, higher success rate.
But I tell all of these young women, especially women who are either just starting out in their career or in the midst of their career, it's expensive, but it is absolutely worth it, because what happens is, like you, or what could have happened to you, is you get into this panic situation where you're like, oh my God, I only have a few good years left. And then you end up marrying whoever is around at the time. And that is never a good reason to get married.
No,
right.
Absolutely.
So if you can, save up your money, because that is probably the best investment you will ever make.
And what's interesting, what's happening now is that big companies like Facebook are actually paying for egg retrieval, freezing eggs for their employees. Yeah, I when I found that out recently, I was like, that is so interesting. Wow, how times have changed, right? That a company is willing to pay for a woman to do that, knowing that a woman does have that limit. So I think that's fascinating, isn't it? So I almost fell under that pressure, which thankfully I didn't. The first time was when I was only in my mid 20s, and my career was just about to, skyrocket, and this guy wanted to propose, and I was like, no, that's not going to happen. So this time, this is a long answer to the question, why now? Because I think I finally have lived my life and have all these wise experiences. I feel obviously much wiser at this age, and I don't feel pressure. I really don't. I mean, pressure for what? I don't feel pressure to get married. I don't feel pressure to have children or succeed or anything like that, right? So for me, I always said, if I meet somebody who I really mesh with and who is enhancing my life, right? I don't have a void that I need to fill. No one needs to complete me. But if I really meet somebody that I have a true connection with, and it's just about the relationship and not about all these other distractions, then that's something meaningful to me. Then I would want to make a commitment to somebody and make a symbolic commitment. So for me, engagement, believe it or not, is more meaningful than marriage and like the wedding and all that stuff, because I feel like engagement is already that public declaration to each other and to the world that you're together. And so, I guess there's a side of me that's somewhat traditional in the sense that I do want to make a commitment to somebody, and that symbolism matters, but it certainly is not about me feeling like, oh my God, I have to get married or else like there's something wrong with me, right?
So this engagement is all you need, right? I mean, because the next question would naturally be, when is the wedding?
Right. And that's so interesting you bring that up, because I didn't realize, I mean, it was kind of naive of me, but I didn't realize that every single person that I told that about my engagement, the very next question would be, have you set a date? Or, are you making plans? I'm like, oh, what? No, I'm not actually. So that's a little unusual too, I guess. Again, according to the societal parameters of what you're supposed to do. And I guess I'm a textbook example of like, I'm so atypical in every way when it comes to this, that it's like, no, I actually don't have a date. I'm not even thinking about it at this point. I'm just sort of taking it day by day. And so, yeah, I guess if I'm totally honest, the engagement is more significant to me than the wedding and the marriage part. The marriage part is kind of more of a formality to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you guys never get married, you're fine with that for now.
Yeah, I mean, I will say right now, yeah, I would be totally fine with that. Now, of course, as we know, we change. Sometimes we think about things and we evolve and things could change a little bit. And who knows, maybe in a couple months' time, I'll be like, yeah, you know what? I think I do want to get actually officially married. But right now, I can honestly say, yeah, I'm pretty good with just being engaged.
Wait, so now do you guys live together already, or is that going to be happening?
No, we have separate houses, and I'm okay with that too. I mean,
I love that.
He has his house, I have my house. He comes over here more than I go over there because I have 2 dogs, right? So it's a little bit, more cumbersome for me to go over there with the 2 dogs and pack everything up. So it kind of works, right?
Wait, but are there plans to cohabitate?
Someday. Yeah, someday. I mean, yeah, of course.
Not in a rush to do anything.
No. See, that's the thing. We're not in a rush to do anything. And I guess we are shattering the norms. And that's why it's so interesting, Kelly. Like when I've talked to
People are confused.
Yes, they're confused, especially my mother.
Yeah.
Can you imagine my 87-year-old mother? She absolutely has no fucking idea what I'm doing. She's just like, so now she's like, whatever. She's like, you do whatever. And I'm like, that's her way to just, saying,
My mother has picked up that exact same word.
What?
She's never said that before. And now she says it all the time too.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Oh, whatever. And in the same way that your mother says it.
Yeah.
She just doesn't get it, and she'll just say, whatever.
Exactly. It's like being very dismissive because they're like, I have no idea what my daughter's doing, so okay. Yeah.
That's hilarious.
It's hilarious.
Is this going around in like the AARP journals or something?
I know,
that
exactly.
word.
Exactly. This is the new word for Asian seniors. Whatever. So it is funny. It's just like it's testing. It's kind of, opening my eyes to the fact that no matter how progressive somebody is, I'm not my mom, but like just friends even, no matter how progressive people are, I think traditions, we've all been programmed so heavily with these traditions our entire lives, right? Through stories, through fairy tales, to movies, all of that I think it's the natural instinct to ask these questions because that's what you're supposed to do, right? I mean, you get engaged. So if you're engaged, then you're supposed to be starting to plan a wedding, of course, and then you're going to live together. I mean, that's just how it goes. So it's interesting to see even the most progressive friends, their immediate question has been, so have you set a date yet?
Right.
Yeah. So I think I'm kind of throwing a lot of people for a loop. But at the same time, I'm like, well, it is what it is for the time being. But I'm really happy.
This is what I always advise people. And it's so funny. I have so much advice about like raising kids and being married, and I've never done either one. But I do have a lot of opinions and advice for people.
Yeah.
But this is what I tell people: have a long engagement. Like, there's no need to rush into anything. If you already know that you're going to be married someday,
right,
why rush into it? Cohabitate.
Right.
Absolutely. Before you get married, because I feel like you don't know a person until you're living with them and smelling their farts.
That's true.
That's like.
But it's true. That is so
true. A whole
true.
different life. Yeah.
Yeah, but again,
do you ever depend of living together, or do you think you love this separate house thing for so long that you could just be like that forever?
No, it's definitely not going to be like this forever. For practical purposes too, it's just like, why do you want to maintain two homes, forever? So no, I think what we're doing is that we have our homes and, our lives are pretty comfortable the way we have it arranged, so that he comes to my house probably four days a week. Right. So it's pretty much almost the entire week, but we still have our separate time. And then we also talk about eventually, when we want to slow down, and, I'm 57, he's 58. So we're already talking about like, okay, how do we want to retire? Where do we want to retire? What does that look like? How do we want to live our lives? And like right off into the sunset. So of course we're going to come together, when we get closer to that point. But like right now, in the next probably I would say in the next year, for sure, it's not like we're gonna merge homes or anything like that for the time being. So though, it could change.
The longest relationship that I've ever had was 12 years, which is a significant amount of time.
That's a long time.
But in 12 years, I never let him move in with me. We always had separate places, and it really worked well for us. I don't know that I could live with a person. I'm so set in my ways, and I don't mind, I guess, having another person around, but I don't need to have another person around.
For me, meeting the right person did make a difference in the way I saw how to move in a relationship. Right. So there is that more willingness on my part to compromise at times and to be softer. And I don't mean like wimpier. It just means like, I know, like me. But it's interesting. It's like, oh, okay, I see how now, because I'm with Andre, it's like I want to be sort of more open and, a little bit more fluid with things, right? Because he is doing the same with me. So that's where I knew that this was a relationship that was going to work for me, because all the others, obviously, for one reason or another, they did not work. And maybe it was because I was too rigid, or that person was too rigid, or it just wasn't coming together. So, and again, we, and I didn't mention this, but we met during the height of COVID. When everyone was on lockdown. And so we met online, and we did it the old-fashioned way of talking, getting to know each other, video conferencing like this for weeks before we even met. So we met at a very unique time when I think all the bullshit was put aside, all the distractions were gone, all the hooking up culture was gone. And so it was like people just wanting to find quality and take the time to figure out if it was right or not, instead of just like saying, oh yeah, let's go meet for a drink and hook up. That didn't exist during this window of time. So it was a really interesting time to meet. During that time, a lot of us were sort of thinking deep thoughts and looking for connection that was more meaningful. And that's what happened for me in a very unexpected way. And the guest we interviewed, Yue Xu, she used to be a dating coach, right? And then she has this podcast called Dateable. But she had come on my show in 2020 to talk about the dating culture and how it was changing because of COVID. And she had talked about how online dating apps were increasing in participation because everybody was stuck at home. But OkCupid had gone up by 230% at the time because OkCupid requires a little bit more work. And so she said, so this goes to show that the people who were online during COVID, they actually were seeking more quality, right?
When you say work, because I've never been on a dating app, when you say work, what does that mean?
Meaning you have to fill out a little bit more of a profile, right? And you have to, it's not just a photo and like 2 words. It's more of a profile. You can answer as many questions as you want or not, but it does give you these options where you can get to know somebody, or, you present yourself in a fuller way online. So she said, because this app was the participation was going up through the roof compared to the others, This again was a reflection of what people were thinking, what they were looking for at the time. So me being a cynical journalist, I was like, I don't know if I believe that. So I put myself on OkCupid as a guinea pig. And so call it investigative journalism. But I put myself on OkCupid, filled out the profile in earnest, and within a week, I met Andre. And he had just joined that week as well.
Was this the first person that you matched with?
Second person.
Oh.
Second person.
And for him, were you the first or?
I think I was probably one of the first. He said only a handful, and the only person that he was interested in, that he saw the profile of, was me. And that's when he reached out to me. Yeah. So that's how that happened. So it was really unexpected for me, but at the same time, we did have a connection, and the dating process was long and sort of very innocent for a couple weeks, because again, we weren't meeting until we were sure that we actually wanted to meet and be safe about it. So it was that little window of time that I think if it was a different situation, I'm not sure if I would have gone online. I don't think I would have tried it, and I don't think this would have happened. So, and then 2.5 years later, we're engaged, and here's the ring. So.
Did it get a traditional diamond?
No. So this is a ring that my father gave my mom as a gift. It wasn't their wedding ring. And so I wanted to incorporate my parents into this because my father passed very suddenly several years ago. And so I got it reset and just tweaked a little bit, but this is the ring. And so, yeah, so my dad is part of it now, and my mom. Oh. Yeah, so that's meaningful to me.
He didn't do the traditional, like, getting down on one knee and having a box and no.
Okay. Because I blew it. He had plans to propose around my birthday, which was the end of March. We got into and it's my fault. I kind of picked a fight with him over Valentine's Day, which is so fucking stupid because I hate Valentine's Day. But something triggered. I was triggered. And so I picked a fight with him, and I was like, I don't think you ever want to like make a commitment to, I was just being a little brat, basically. And so he's like, well, I guess I have to tell you. I'm like, tell me what? He's like, well, I was going to propose to you on your birthday. And I'm like, sorry. So no, he didn't do there was no formal proposal because I fucking blew it.
That is hilarious.
It's so
the things that we do, right? Because
seriously,
we're brats.
And we're brats.
Sometimes.
Yeah, and sometimes sometimes we want to like sabotage something, unknowingly. But yeah, so I almost fucked it up. But it's kind of hilarious because it makes for a good story, and it's so typical. Like everything about this is atypical, right? So it's just par for the course. But anyway, so here's the thing: we decided to do this episode on relationships because, as you can see, not everyone is the same. Everyone takes a different path, right? And relationships can come in many forms, and then other times you can choose not to have one, and that's okay too. So we decided to, we decided to invite Yue Xu, the woman I just told you about, on the show because she's actually the reason why I went online. So in essence, I should probably thank her for having met Andre. But we wanted to talk to her about what's going on in the dating culture now, post-COVID, and talk about relationships and what that all means now. So here is that interview, and we'll see you on the backside. And remember, Tamlyn is part of this interview too. So, okay, here we go. Yue, welcome to the show. Good to see you again.
So good to see you all, lovely ladies.
Yeah, well, we know each other, of course, because of the story that I just shared about how we met. But I thought, how fun would it be to get you back on the show now that everything has transpired and I'm now an engaged woman at 57.
Oh my gosh.
So there's a reason why I waited this long. You know, I deliberately made my choices in life, you know, of not getting married, not getting engaged, and waiting this long. And then also not knowing if it would happen. And I was okay with that. And that's why we wanted to do this show about relationships and, you know, at every age, because yeah, sometimes it's not about taking the traditional route because society says so, right?
Correct.
So,
That's right.
so Yue, you know, the fact that you introduced me to the concept of like what was going on during COVID made me curious, really, about, okay, is this really happening? Are people really seeking out more quality relationships because of COVID? Because, you know, the days of just hooking up were over. And you and your co-host had a term for those particular boys who no longer could behave the way they could. Yes.
F boys.
Yes.
F boys, yeah.
Fuck boys.
What was the fuck boys, Tamlyn? Fuck boys.
She's like, the fudge boys? The fun boys?
I heard fun boys. I heard fun boys, and I go, okay, they are play toys.
Fantastic
yeah,
boys?
Yeah. No, definitely not
Wait,
fantastic
Yue.
boys.
No.
I need to know how, and Yue, I need to know how you got into this. What were you doing before you got into this?
Yeah.
Or are you still?
What was I doing before I got into this? A whole lot of mistakes, probably just making a lot of dating mistakes. And I remember I was a dating coach for a few years. I was a dating coach in New York. Yep.
How?
And then I
How?
moved
What
my
does that
business to
mean?
Beijing.
What does that mean?
Basically men came to me for advice about dating. And at the time I was living in New York City. I was kind of like in between careers, not really know what to do with my life, but I love talking to people like you all do. You're very curious about people and how they live their lives. And I remember just striking up a conversation with a guy at a bar. It wasn't creepy at all, but he worked on Wall Street. And he said, I have everything else in my life figured out except for the love department. What am I doing wrong? So we ended up having this 2-hour conversation. He's like, I'm willing to pay you to talk to me more because I really need someone to work through some of my issues. And, you know, therapy wasn't a big thing back then. So I became his quintessential dating therapist. And I built my client base. He had so many of his Wall Street friends who were in the same conundrum. These surface level F boys to all of us had really deep issues that they were working through, which were preventing them from finding love and falling in love. So it became kind of my passion, is just to help these men find love. And I eventually moved that business to Beijing. I moved to Beijing for personal reasons and found a lot of expats in the same spot and wanting to find love, didn't know how to get there, found a lot of blockers in their life. So that kind of forayed into wanting to do a podcast about dating because I just had collected so much historical data from all of these clients, but also all of these myths about dating, the miscommunication we have between men and women. Men think women have it so easy to date in dating, and women think men have it so easy in dating. And in fact, nobody has it easy in dating. That is the truth. That is the only truth we can go by.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, so now Yue, she came on the previous show, the Mei Li show, as we've mentioned, and then I went on her show to kind of share the story of what happened to me. But it's so interesting because I think, like you said, Yue, dating is the fundamental issue that most people have to deal with if they want to date, right? And so what are you finding? So I'm curious about pre-COVID. Obviously, it was like everybody did their thing. The hookup culture was alive and well. During COVID, clearly that all went away. Right? And people were not really dating because they really couldn't, or the people who really wanted to find quality, then they were very focused, right? And I was lucky to find, Andre. And then now it's sort of post-COVID, things are supposed to go back to normal, but with dating, they kind of haven't yet, has it?
I feel like people have amnesia when it comes to dating, is that they have all these, during COVID, people had all these revelations and how they're going to do dating differently. As soon as things started opening up, people are back to the old ways a little bit. We're starting to see some of that coming back. But what is so interesting about COVID is that when was the last time you had so much focused time to think, to just be alone with your thoughts? Maybe never. Right. And for so many people, and especially in our culture, which is just go, 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 distract, 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 all of these distractions are removed. People had to sit down with themselves and think, what is it that I actually want? Am I dating to find love? Am I dating for companionship? Am I dating because I don't want to be alone? People had to ask themselves the hard questions. And that's why intentional dating was born out of COVID. I think now people are going back into what I call reactive dating. I'm dating because I want to fill up my Friday night. I'm dating because all my friends are married with kids and I need to have, companionship. But I hope that people will keep reverting back to that intentionality that they found during COVID.
Well, that's funny because there's two terms I read or found during the research. Intentional dating, like you're saying, right? And then there's something called hesitating. Hesitant dating. So people...
What's that definition?
Hesitant dating came out of COVID when people are thinking, do they want to date or don't they? So they're kind of hesitating on dating. So, and other data is showing that
so they're not dating.
Yeah. So
that's just a word for somebody who's not dating.
Not dating, or just like really
Correct.
starting to question whether or not they even want to date or they want to remain single. Because another survey that came out, it says 1 out of 5 people who are single, they're not interested in dating.
So does dating have an agenda that you want it to end up in a meaningful, hopefully,
Relationship?
marriage or a partnership, a formalized relationship? Or else it just sounds like hesitating is just hanging out or hooking up, the totally millennial kind of term, or just seeing somebody without dating. So I guess the terminology is always evolving, but the intentionality, I think, by what Yue said, is that you're here to present yourself in the best way, vulnerable way as possible in order to connect to another person that you want to make a commitment to. Does that sound correct, or am I inferring more things into that term?
That's exactly it. Tamlyn, What you just said is the exact thought process of a lot of daters. What am I dating for? Am I dating for companionship? Do I even want to date? Once I'm in a relationship, what does that look like? What are all these crazy terms coming out? Like ghosting, breadcrumbing, roaching. These are all terms that came out. Yeah, exactly.
I know.
There needs to be a whole dictionary about all these bad dating behaviors, because I don't believe that dating culture is so bad that everyone's out to get you. The dating apps are out to get you. There's just bad dating behavior everywhere. I truly believe people just don't know why they're dating. There is no why behind what they're doing. People feel like they need a date because that's what my friends are doing. That's what you do, right? If you're not dating, then what are you? And now, right, well, then there's this whole incel movement of people who are involuntarily celibate. There's just so many groups that came out to say, I intentionally am doing something. I choose to date or I choose to not date. But to your point, May, I think we're in sort of a love crisis right now where so many people are choosing not to date because they've given up on dating. This is an issue. And maybe you've heard the term a sex drought. We're in a sex drought as well. People are having less sex than ever.
I thought that was just me.
Especially the younger generations are choosing not to have sex. They're choosing not to be in relationships. So we're seeing more siloed experiences than ever before. And then this is a global issue. Look at Japan. Japan's having a major population issue. The government is stepping in to match people so that they can procreate. It's a real issue right now. So the question now is, are we seeing this trend of people just choosing to live a life alone? Or is it just that people have given up on dating because they've been so burnt out by it? We don't know.
Well, in Japan, isn't it an economic issue?
For sure. So is dating. Dating is, people would say dating is very expensive.
It's very expensive. Very expensive.
When was the last time you went out on a date for, let's say, drinks and some food? You can't spend less than $100.
I'll tell you something. That's why during that period of time when we were in intense lockdown, so in 2020, right? And for me, it was the summer of 2020 when I met Andre on OkCupid. And at that time, nobody could do anything. You couldn't even meet for coffee. So it really was a throwback to old world dating, old school dating, where it was all about just communicating. Instead of letter writing, it was a phone call, but then we did this. We did exactly what we're doing right now, is all video conferencing for a couple of weeks. So in that sense, it was a very unique time of meeting somebody and really having to depend on your communication skills and getting to know each other way before there was any physical contact whatsoever. And so you were able to we were able to determine, do I even want to meet this person face to face? Because it was risky. But it really was, I have to say, I feel really lucky and blessed that I met Andre during this period of time, because it really allowed us to get to know each other before there was any pressure of anything else, right? And I think that's what right now, so, you know, again, going back to what we're talking about, like, why aren't people wanting to meet or, you know, date anymore? And the distractions of the world are back, right? There's a lot going on in the world. There's a lot of bad shit going on in the world. There's a lot of stress. And all of that has come back with a vengeance. And so therefore, I think some people feel like, what the hell? What's the point? Right? I mean, there's a lot of that. And then I think the isolation kind of left us sort of forgetting about how to behave and how to socialize, you know, so people are trying to like get back into that, you know. I don't know. You, what are your thoughts? Have you found that to be the case when you talk about this on your podcast?
Well, there's one major factor, and it's alcohol. It's alcohol. So when you during COVID, when you're doing video dates, you aren't really drinking, or maybe you are, but not to the extent of before COVID. And dating used to be such an alcohol-driven event. You go out to the bars and you have a few drinks, right? And people feel like, oh, I can let loose and be comfortable. Now that people are starting to rethink alcohol, and I'm sure you've seen kind of the trend of more non-alcoholic drinks popping up at bars and restaurants. It's a more sobering experience, which is making people pause to think, like, do I even enjoy this? Am I enjoying this person's company? And what I love about how you met Andre, May, is that you had these sober meetups where you can just be yourself and really let yourself be on video calls with this person. You didn't bring your date self, which is what happens when people now meet up, is that you're performative. You know, people have this other persona that they bring on dates. And with alcohol involved, there's that other layer of persona. So I think it's a really strange time where people want the authenticity and vulnerability, yet they're reverting back to the old tools they had to get there, like alcohol and being performative.
What would your advice be then for someone who is out there looking?
The first piece of advice I would give to anyone, which I had to do myself, was to sit down and ask, why do I date? What is my dating why? We coined this term on Dateable. It's what is the core of the why behind why you're dating? And you got to ask yourself at least 3 times. At least 3 times. Because the first time is, why am I dating? Oh, because I'm looking for companionship. Why are you looking for companionship? Because I want to build a life with someone. Why do you want to build a life with someone? because I'm an immigrant and I want to establish roots in this country with someone.
Oh.
Wow. That's incredible. Now I have a why. And when I find potential partners, I want to see if they can be aligned to that. Do you want to build roots with me in this country where we are foreigners, or where I'm a foreigner? That's much more compelling than saying I want companionship. So I would encourage everyone to first sit down alone and ask yourself, what's your dating why? And the second piece of advice I would say is, how do you bring more of your authentic self to dating? We call these date review questions that most people have on dates. It's, where are you from? Do you have siblings? How did you grow up? What do you do for your work, etc.? It's a date review, and that's not fun. Nobody wants to sit through a date review. You're not interviewing for a job. But on a date, can you bring more of yourself? Like, let's say you had a really crazy day, and can you bring more of that to this date and involve your date on it? Say, I had this really crazy day. Can I run something by you? Do you think this is crazy for me to think this way? Or do you think that I reacted too much in this way? So you like really bring that person into your life instead of you asking the questions and judging them based on their answers.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, and it doesn't stop. It doesn't stop. That's what you do when you get married. After the dating stops, it's like dating is a continual practice in the relationship. And you know how many years Daniel and I have been together. We're still dating. We're still finding out about each other. We're still evolving in our own careers and evolving as a couple together. So it doesn't stop. I think this, you know, what you're talking about, Yue and May, is like, it's finding your authenticity, and it's finding the vulnerability, the willingness to be vulnerable, to acknowledge your wants. You know, that's really difficult. It's like, if I'm fine, you know, not dating or just being alone and having my 3 cats, that's not lonely to me, but it might be perceived as lonely, and continually justify that. But that's my choice.
You know what's so interesting is that one of the other survey shows about dating culture and relationships now and what people are seeking is that there's a rigidity. There's more rigidity in people who are single, that they don't really want to change. So
I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh my God. I wasn't being suggestive, Kelly. Listen, look, I can vouch for this myself too, having been single for, again, a long freaking time and never making the commitment and never being willing to make the commitment. There was a rigidity to me too. Part of it is, yes, what you're saying, Tamlyn, is that I was, you know, looking for authenticity, and I wanted that connection that made sense, right? So I wasn't just going to settle. But there's also this factor of, as we get older, as we get more set in our ways, you know, we're going to be like, well, I'm not going to change dramatically for another person if it's, you know, if it's not worth it. But Kelly, please chime in.
So maybe Yue can figure me out, but I've never been the one who wanted to be in a relationship. I always felt like I had gotten trapped into one. And I am not the kind of person who feels like being in a relationship is going to make my life any better. I always feel like being in a relationship, I have to give up so much. Because I have such a great life. I travel and my work is always taking me to different places. And I don't think I can find someone, unless I can find somebody who can absolutely make my life better. And I don't feel like I'm giving something up in order to be with this person. I don't feel like it's worth it. I'd rather be single.
I love that. But that's such a beautiful thing you just said, Kelly. It's that you're basically saying, I only want to be with someone when it feels additive to my life.
Right.
And this is sort of the mistake a lot of daters make, is that they think a relationship is going to make them happy. A relationship is going to make them whole. You complete me. And that's all bullshit. You can all attest to that, right? That is all bullshit because you complete yourself. And if a partner is worthy enough to be part of your life, they're only going to be additive. So what is so fascinating about what you just said, Kelly, is that we are trying a very non-traditional relationships happening where people who are dating later in life, who have a great life, who have a great place, who have all the things that they want in their home the way they wanted to, that they are in a committed relationship with someone who they don't live with. That is a major trend. Or you
I did that for 12 years.
And that's perfectly beautiful. I think that is, you make it your own. And, for all of us, we just have to make it our own. We can't feel like, well, everybody else does it this way. We have to combine our finances, or we have to have a joint bank account. We have to combine our household. And if that doesn't feel right for you, you don't do it because it's not additive to you. And that's okay I think that's where the rigidity is okay, is that you can be rigid about what you still love about your life that you're not willing to give up, but flexible in your heart of who you allow into your world and who you allow into the love that you're willing to give. And love can look like so many different configurations. There's not one way. So I feel like I almost feel a little bit disheartened that so many daters out there feel like, but I want it in this different way. Is there something wrong with me? That's what I'm hearing you say, Kelly. It's like, what is wrong with me? Why is it that I don't really feel like the need to be in a relationship? The answer is there's nothing wrong with you. You are just able to express love in your own way. And that is absolutely okay. In fact, it should be encouraged.
Yes,
Hallelujah.
no,
Thank
for
you.
sure, for
Thank
sure.
you.
So here's the thing: I think we are so sort of sometimes bound. A lot of people think they're bound by these societal guidelines and these parameters, right? And we're all programmed to a certain extent from childhood to look at these fairy tales and these movies, still these rom-coms, all of that. We're exposed to it constantly, but the beauty, I think, that's why I wanted to have this conversation too, because we're all older women and we're all at different stages in terms of relationships, right? Kelly's single. I'm just engaged at 57. Tamlyn's been married for many years, but she still has like an interesting relationship too. So it's like for all of us, we've defined it in our own ways, right? Yeah. And to the younger people, I always want to say, what's the rush? Just don't think you have to fall under this kind of pressure, societal pressure. You can define whatever it is you want.
I guess to reiterate what Yue is saying is like, there's nothing wrong with you guys. This is your definition of who you are as persons, and finding persons who are willing to align themselves in your lives, and opening up to the fact that you're willing to be face forward and widening the definition of what a commitment is, what love is, what a relationship is. And it doesn't follow the programmatic questions of, when is your ceremony, or when are you going to move? Like exactly what Kelly said, because that's what we're used to. But you're changing, you're widening, you're deepening the definitions. And as long as it makes sense to you, we will learn to make sense of your relationship. It's like, they really do love each other. It just doesn't fit into what I traditionally knew. And it's like, that's a beautiful blossoming definition of what love is.
Exactly. Kelly, you were going to say something.
I was going to say also, this is who I am right now at this moment.
Correct.
I could easily evolve into something else. You never know. I don't want to get stuck in this definition, and I don't want people to be like, but you said this at one point in your life.
I want to see Kelly Who as a bridezilla then.
Absolutely.
Right.
And I absolutely love that so much, because it shows we're not committed to this person forever, like who I am today forever, because we're constantly changing. So how can our relationships be the same? And what bothers me about society is that there's always that, what's next? What's next? What's next? What's next? And then after you get married and have kids, and then people stop asking because they think that that's it. That's the end of life. Like you've reached the end of life. And then what? Yeah. The average lifespan is getting to closer and closer to 100 years old. And most people retire around 65, 70. So you have 30 years of life after working to keep reinventing yourself. That's both exciting and scary for people to realize, is that you have a whole other life ahead of you.
Yeah.
And that looks so differently for your relationships. I mean, I've known couples who've been married for 30, 40 years who've opened up their relationship. Now they're in a polyamorous relationship. I've known couples who've decided that after 30 years of marriage, they're going to live apart, still be married, but they're going to live apart and possibly date other people. Or they decide to take on a whole new way of like living in. We met a couple that they live in the same condo, just in different units. And they parent their kids together, and they carved a door between their units so the kids can go back and forth, but the two of them do not enter each other's homes.
That is interesting, unless invited. Right.
Interesting, right?
Yeah.
You
That
just
is
make it
interesting.
your own, because we have to keep reinventing ourselves. If our lifespan is getting longer and longer,
Yes.
we can't commit to this life for the rest of our lives. It just doesn't work. It's like the same as when you declared a major when you first entered college. How do you know that's what you want to do for the rest of your life? You're just
Pre-med.
making.
I was pre-med. Ugh.
Yeah, I was a computer science major. Like, what?
Yeah, exactly.
Your parents are all so glad they paid those bills.
Oh my God, I know. Yeah. When I told them, I'm
Don't tell
gonna
my
be a
parents. I
journalist.
still tell them I'm a computer science. I'm still a software engineer
No.
in their eyes.
But yes, you're so right, Yue, in terms of the continuous evolution of who we are as human beings. And again, I get so mad when society puts these strict guidelines and restrictions on when and where and how you're supposed to live your life. And then, there's like a finality to like, oh, if you're married and have kids and, done, right? And so that's why I want to, these conversations help dispel, especially for younger people, to know that no, that's not really how life works sometimes, and you have to roll with it. You have to find your own journey and path, to whatever that means.
Sorry, I think a lot of these definitions were born out of religion, right? Where there was this union, this marriage, and then because people or religions wanted their people to procreate so they could, have more followers, and I don't know that religion plays such an important role in a lot of people's lives these days, not like it did before. And so I think maybe that's why people are evolving and doing things differently. They just don't feel like they have to follow societal's norms to be happy or to be perfect or to be, accepted. I'm happy not to be accepted.
No, you are accepted. You just don't abide by the standards that were set from eons ago, and because you're honoring yourself and you're honoring the people around you. You're not dishonoring them. I think that's the novel idea, is that people think if it's outside the norm, it's like, well, it's weird or it's evil or it's bad or it's wrong, and those are reiterated in how you were describing yourself, even though it's self-deprecating. But again, it kind of leaks in, and we have to be aware that just because it's different doesn't mean that it's not loving, that it's not good. It's absolutely good, because again, there's just not one way to do things, the way to do things. So it's an important discussion to be able to have and to own yourself and to say, I'm just doing things a little bit differently. If you want to understand, I'd be happy to explain it to you, but I'm in an open relationship. I just got engaged at 57. I don't have to have all the, the bells and whistles of what it means to be married. It's like people have to be willing to listen if they're really truly invested in your life, in being a friend, in being assistance or a support system, as those persons who are important to you.
I had a conversation with my girlfriends about this. It's like, if we all made a pact to not be in relationships and we can provide that love for each other and live together, we probably wouldn't pursue dating. We probably wouldn't pursue relationships. A lot of us pursue relationships because everybody else is coupled off. It's like, who are you gonna like spend your time with if they're all coupled off? It's almost a sense of belonging when we do that. So if we keep changing what that that system looks like, that we don't need to be paired off. I mean, it's very isolating to just be two people anyway. If we can involve more people into our lives, into that core system, I think we can change the way people view relationships and make it not so much about, well, this is what society wants it to do, you know.
Do whatever feels right for you at the moment.
Yeah. Not for anybody else. Yeah. Oh, so fun. Thank you. Thanks for a lovely discussion. To be continued.
Continued, exactly. So I think that final point about the fact that maybe we need to rethink, our sense of community, our sense of relationships, and it can't be so defined. I think that's a good concept to kind of think about, because our world is changing, right? The traditional family, traditional relationships, they're being replaced by other ways of doing it.
Or evolving.
Exactly.
Yeah, because there are some people who want to be traditional, and that's fine too. It's whatever it is that it works for you, right?
Exactly.
Some people need to have that commitment and want that structure, and that's fine.
Yep.
It doesn't work for everybody, but it's good that people understand that this is evolving and that there are other choices out there, and that we should not judge people for whatever choice that they're making at the time.
That's exactly right. And I think, relationships come in many different forms, including friendships, right? I love my girlfriends, and it's just like sometimes I feel like, man, if I had to choose, I would absolutely choose my girlfriends over any kind of other relationship, just because of that connection that women have to each other.
Yeah.
That I feel sorry for guys. They really don't have the connection that women have with each other. It's a bond that's so deep.
Politics or whatever, but rarely do they go deep the way women do.
Exactly. Our bond is much deeper.
We hold each other up.
Yeah. It's a sisterhood. Yeah. It's a very strong sisterhood. So, but so we mentioned in a previous episode that our first sponsor of the show is Lemieux Skincare. And so every episode, we're going to do a short segment that's sponsored by Lemieux. Great products, by the way. And so, it's kind of like always talking about wellness or something related to the episode. So obviously, since we were talking about relationships, Kelly, share with us, all of us, a way in which maybe you were able to maintain a relationship or something you did within a relationship that was different, unique, special.
So I used to do for myself, I would do beauty day, where I would just save a whole day, where I would do like a face mask, and I would, like face scrub, face mask, soak in a bath. I would sit in front of the TV and watch a movie with, conditioner in my hair, and just like a day that was just committed to beautifying and self-care and relaxation. And when I got into a relationship, I started this in my 20s. I asked my boyfriend if he wanted to join, wanted to do a beauty day. And at first he was like, wait, what? That, beauty day, like, what is that? And I was like, no, we're going to do this. This could be fun. So he actually got into it. We would sit there and we would, of course, he would like this, the bath together. Of course, that's the way to sell them on it, right? And then we'd sit there in front of the TV with our face masks and our hair conditioner, and he actually used to look forward to beauty day.
Oh my God.
It was always so much fun to be able to do it together, and guys would never do it themselves.
No.
But it gives them a good excuse to do this with you, right? It was fun to be able to do this together.
Yeah.
And introduce him to his own self-care.
Oh my gosh. And now he's your ex, but he must be beautiful now because thanks to you.
I know. His current girlfriend can thank me.
Well, for me, I was like, oh, what should I talk about when it comes to wellness and relationships related to this Lemieux segment? And for me, I decided, it's really about connection to me, obviously, no matter what kind of relationship I'm talking about. And I think we get so distracted and we're so busy. What I realize is after COVID, during COVID, we were connecting, right? Because we had so much time, on our hands. So we would do Zoom, cocktail parties with friends and things like that. But I don't do that anymore. I barely even call people anymore because we just are too busy. So the times when I do take the time to make a phone call and not think, oh, it's going to be 5 minutes, but just make it for as long as it needs to be to catch up with somebody, it makes such a difference. I feel so full after that conversation because I feel like we both made a concerted effort to take some time just to talk and talk as long as we need to have a really good catch up. I mean, I do this obviously with my girlfriends, but we don't do it. I know I'm guilty of not doing it enough, but when I do, it's such a rich experience of connection and deeper connection. And friendships to me are so important. And so I feel like that's a wellness thing. It's like, it's self-care, but also caring about somebody else in your life and maintaining that relationship and not taking it for granted. So that would be my way of showing, some sort of care, and it goes both ways, right? It should be a two-way street in that sharing experience. So,
but it's wonderful to have people like that in your lives. Everybody should have at least one.
Definitely,
right?
And it's not quantity; it's definitely quality, right? Especially as we get older. When you're younger, you're like, oh, I have so many friends. But now it's really about quality. And that's, those really true blue ride or die friends. And I think that's the most meaningful.
Somebody sent me a meme that described it perfectly. My best friend from Hawaii, who I've known since I was 12 years old. I have like two best friends in Hawaii that I've known since what we call Hanabara days. Hanabara is like snot. And so it was perfect. She said, I'm going to sort of put this in my own words, but a real friend or a true friend is somebody who you don't have a lot of pictures with to post, but you call each other maybe 3 times a year and you have the most amazing conversations, but no pictures to post on Instagram.
Yes, but those are the friends where you, even if you haven't talked in a year, you pick right back up and it's as if no time passed. So that's significant. So anyway, with Lemieux, I mean, we wanted to at least just, talk about kind of that side of relationships and how we want to view and treat each other with care and wellness in mind. So thank you, Lemieux, for being a sponsor once again. And thank you all for listening to this episode. Hope you tune in again. But here's a reminder. Please subscribe to our channel, Shoes Off Inside on YouTube. Go give us a great review, rate us on any podcast platform that you listen to, because we're on all of them. And because we want to always continue all these great conversations we're having. And next time, Tamlyn will be with us. But today it was just me and Kelly. Thanks, Kelly.
So good to see you.
Good to see you too. Take care. We'll see you soon.